The gallery was all white walls and champagne glasses, the kind of space designed to make you feel either important or invisible. My sister Vanessa stood at the center of it all, radiant in a silk dress, surrounded by Sydney's art elite. I was in the corner, wearing jeans and a blazer, holding a glass of wine I hadn't touched. Then Vanessa saw me. Her expression shifted from hostess smile to something colder. She crossed the room, heels clicking on polished concrete, and stopped just close enough for people to hear. "Isla, darling, still doing your little restoration projects?" Her tone was honey laced with arsenic. Before I could answer, she laughed. "It's honestly pathetic that you're still stuck in these dead-end jobs while I've built something real." The conversations around us paused. Eyes flickered our way. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I just set down my glass, grabbed my bag, and walked out into the Sydney night. As I stood on the curb, I pulled out my phone and sent a message to someone I'd kept carefully separate from this world. "Can you pick me up?" 15 minutes later, a black Bentley pulled up. The driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and a man in an impeccable suit emerged. I didn't look back, but I knew Vanessa was watching from the gallery window, and I knew exactly what she was seeing. My name is Isla Monroe. I'm 37 years old, and for most of my life, I've been invisible. Not because I wanted to be, but because my sister made sure I stayed that way. Vanessa is 3 years younger, louder, shinier, the kind of person who walks into a room and demands attention. She opened her first art gallery at 28 and never let anyone forget it. She posts constantly on Instagram, curates her life like it's an exhibition, and treats family gatherings like networking events. And me? I'm the one who restores the art that people like Vanessa sell. The one who works in silence, in studios that smell of linseed oil and centuries-old canvas. The one nobody notices until something precious breaks and they need someone to fix it. Growing up in Perth, Vanessa was always the favorite, the one who got the praise, the encouragement, the belief. I was quieter, more careful, more interested in how things were made than how they were displayed. When Vanessa announced she was moving to Sydney to make it in the art world, our parents threw her a going-away party. When I left for Florence to study conservation, they asked if I was sure I wanted to waste my degree on old paintings. That told me everything I needed to know about where I stood. So I stopped trying to stand anywhere. I just focused on my work. If you've ever been the overlooked one in your family, this story is for you. Stay with me, because what happens next is going to change everything. And if you're new here, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know, and trust me, you're going to want to see where this goes. Art restoration isn't glamorous. It's painstaking, precise, almost invisible when done right. You spend months, sometimes years, working on a single painting, removing centuries of dirt and bad repairs, bringing back what was lost. It requires patience, knowledge, a steady hand, and an understanding of chemistry, history, and art that most people don't have. I loved every second of it. After Florence, I worked in Rome, then London, then back to Australia. I took freelance contracts, worked with private collectors, museums, auction houses. I built a reputation in circles that valued discretion and skill over noise and self-promotion. My clients didn't hire me because I had a big following. They hired me because I was the best. Over the years, I worked on pieces worth millions. A Caravaggio for a private collector in Milan. A Turner for the National Gallery. A damaged Monet that had been in storage for decades. Each project was a privilege, a secret world between me and the canvas. I didn't post about it. I didn't brag. I didn't need to. The work spoke for itself. But to my family, I was just Illa, who does something with old paintings. Vanessa would introduce me at parties as her sister, who's still figuring things out. My parents would ask when I was going to settle down and get a real job. and I'd smile and change the subject because explaining felt exhausting and pointless. Then, 3 years ago, I got a call from a private client in Melbourne. A billionaire collector named Marcus Ashford had acquired a damaged Rembrandt and needed someone discreet, skilled, and available immediately. I flew down the next day. The painting was in worse condition than described: water damage, cracking, previous restoration that had done more harm than good. But I loved a challenge. Marcus was different from most collectors I'd worked with. He didn't hover. He didn't micromanage. He'd sit in the studio for hours, reading, occasionally asking thoughtful questions about technique or history. He cared about the art itself, not just its value. We talked about everything: philosophy, travel, the way light changes meaning in a painting. He had this quiet intensity, like he saw things most people missed. Over 6 months, I restored the Rembrandt. It was some of my best work. When I finished, Marcus stood in front of it for a long time without speaking. Then he turned to me and said, "You've given it back its soul." That was the moment something shifted between us. We started meeting for coffee, then dinner, then weekends exploring galleries and private collections. He introduced me to a world I'd only glimpsed: private auctions, invitation-only viewings, conversations with curators and collectors who shaped the art market. But we kept it quiet. Marcus valued privacy as much as I did. And I didn't tell my family because I knew exactly what would happen. They'd make it about his money. They'd want access. They'd turn something beautiful into something transactional. So I lived 2 lives. In one, I was Isla, the invisible sister, still struggling, still stuck. In the other, I was Isla, the restoration expert, traveling the world, dining with collectors, standing in private galleries worth hundreds of millions, with a man who saw me for exactly who I was. And I was content with that division, until the night Vanessa called me pathetic in front of a room full of people. Have you ever kept part of your life secret just to protect it from people who wouldn't understand? Drop the word "protected" in the comments if you have. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. What's coming next is going to leave you speechless. I stood outside Vanessa's gallery, the cool Sydney air cutting through the humiliation still burning in my chest. I could have called an Uber. I could have walked. But something in me snapped. I was done hiding, done protecting people who'd never protected me. I pulled out my phone and texted Marcus. He was in Sydney for a Christie's preview. "Can you pick me up?" 3 dots appeared immediately. "Address?" I sent it. "Be there in 15. When the Bentley pulled up, heads turned. Marcus stepped out, and even in the dim streetlight, he looked like he'd walked out of a different century. Tailored suit, effortless elegance, the kind of presence that doesn't shout but commands. He saw my face and knew immediately. "Rough night?" I nodded. He opened the door. "Come on. Let's get you out of here." As I slid into the car, I glanced back at the gallery. Vanessa was at the window, phone in hand, face frozen in shock. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just let her watch as the Bentley pulled away into the night. Marcus took me to a quiet restaurant in Darling Point, the kind of place that doesn't have a sign, just a door and a host who knows everyone by name. We sat by the window overlooking the harbor, lights shimmering across black water. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked gently. I told him everything. The years of being overlooked, the constant comparisons, the way Vanessa treated my work like a hobby while hers was a career. And finally, tonight, the word "pathetic" still echoing in my head. Marcus listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You know what I've learned about people like your sister? They build their worth on comparison. They need someone beneath them to feel above. But you? You've built something real, something that doesn't need an audience." His words settled over me like a blanket. "I just don't understand why she can't see that," I said. Because she's looking at the wrong things, Marcus replied. She sees galleries and openings and social media. She doesn't see the quiet mastery of what you do, and that's her loss, not yours. We stayed there for hours, talking, laughing, letting the weight of the night dissolve into something lighter. When he dropped me home, he kissed my forehead. For what it's worth, I think you're extraordinary. I believed him, because he'd always seen me, long before anyone else bothered to look. The next morning, my phone exploded. 17 missed calls from Vanessa, texts from my mother, messages from people who'd been at the gallery. Who was that man? Was that Marcus Ashford? Do you know who he is? Vanessa's messages grew increasingly frantic. Isla, we need to talk. Why didn't you tell me you knew Marcus Ashford? Can you introduce me? This could be huge for the gallery. I turned my phone off and went to work. I was in the middle of restoring a 19th century landscape for the Art Gallery of New South Wales, and I needed silence, focus, the familiar rhythm of my hands bringing color back to faded skies. But Vanessa didn't give up. 2 days later, she showed up at my studio in Newtown. I heard the knock, the impatient rhythm I recognized instantly. I opened the door. She stood there, designer bag, perfect makeup, desperation in her eyes. Can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. She walked into my workspace, looking around like she'd never seen it before. The canvases on easels, the jars of pigment, the smell of turpentine and thyme. This is where you work? She asked, almost surprised. Yes. She turned to me. Isla, I'm sorry about what I said. I was stressed. The gallery opening, the pressure. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did, I said calmly. You've been saying versions of it for years. This was just the first time you said it out loud. She flinched. That's not fair. Isn't it? I set down my brush. You've spent our entire lives treating me like I'm less than you, like my work doesn't matter, like I'm stuck while you've moved on. But you have no idea what I do, who I work with, what I've built. You never asked. Because you never told me, she shot back. Because you never cared, I said quietly. You only care now because you saw Marcus. Because suddenly, I'm connected to someone you want access to. That's not caring about me, Vanessa. That's caring about what I can do for you. Silence filled the studio. She looked at the floor. I want to make this right. Then respect me, I said. Not because of who I'm with, not because of what I might offer, just because I'm your sister and I've always deserved it. She nodded slowly, tears forming. Can I meet him, Marcus? I shook my head. No. Why not? Because he's mine, I said simply. He's the part of my life I built without you, without needing your approval or validation, and I'm keeping it that way. Stay with me. The ending is coming, and it's going to hit differently than you expect. And please, if you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. It means everything. Vanessa left my studio that day, and we didn't speak for weeks. My parents called, trying to mediate, but I was done mediating. I'd spent decades making myself smaller to fit into a family that never made space for me. I was finished. Marcus and I continued our life together, quietly, beautifully. We traveled to Paris for an auction, spent a weekend in the Blue Mountains, attended private viewings where I was introduced not as someone's sister but as Isla Munro, one of Australia's leading art conservators. People knew my name, respected my work, valued my opinion, and it felt like breathing for the first time. 3 months after the gallery incident, Vanessa reached out again. This time, the message was different. I've been thinking about what you said. You were right. I never saw you. And I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I'm trying to do better. I didn't respond immediately. I sat with it for days, weighing hurt against hope, anger against the possibility of change. Finally, I wrote back. I appreciate that, but things can't go back to how they were. If we rebuild, it has to be on mutual respect. No comparisons. No using me for connections. Just two sisters who actually see each other. She agreed. Slowly, carefully, we started over. Coffee once a month. Conversations that didn't revolve around her gallery or my silence. She asked about my work, genuinely, and I shared pieces I'd kept hidden. She showed me a vulnerability I'd never seen before, admitting the gallery was struggling, that the pressure was suffocating, that she'd built her identity on a version of success that was exhausting to maintain. We weren't close, not like sisters in movies, but we were real, and that was enough. As for Marcus, what started as quiet companionship grew into something I never expected. Love without performance, partnership without pretense. He proposed on a quiet afternoon in my studio, surrounded by half-finished restorations and the smell of old canvas. No grand gesture, just him, me, and a simple question. "Will you build a life with me?" I said yes. We married 6 months later in a small ceremony in the Barossa Valley. Just close friends, no family drama, no need to prove anything to anyone. It was perfect. Looking back, I realized the night Vanessa called me pathetic wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of me finally standing in my truth, unapologetically, without needing external validation. I'd spent so long being invisible that I forgot I had a choice. I could step into the light anytime I wanted. I just had to believe I deserved to be there. And once I did, everything changed. If you've ever been made to feel small by people who should have built you up, I want you to hear this. Your worth isn't defined by their inability to see it. You don't need to perform or prove or explain yourself to people who've already decided you're not enough. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away and build something beautiful without them. Let them wonder. Let them watch. Let them realize, too late, what they missed. What do you think? Should I have given Vanessa another chance? Or should I have cut her off completely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. More powerful, real stories are coming your way. Thank you for listening. And remember, the quietest lives are often the richest ones. You don't need applause to know your worth.